All right, and we're live with the Focal Thought, and we're sitting here with the infamous Darren Pereira.
What's going on?
How you doing? Nice
Good.
to see you. It's been a while, eh? It's been a minute.
Long time. St. Mary's.
St. Mary's, wow. Seems almost like a lifetime ago.
It's unbelievable.
I'm really excited about this podcast because you've done a lot in the short amount of time since you've left school. You've killed it. And I really want to get into some of the projects you've been up to. I personally like to describe you as jack of all trades, master of some, prince of visions. And I think that suits your character. You're always ahead of the curve, I find, and I want to get into that. First off, I must mention to the audience, our setting here is unique. Usually when we do podcasts, it's at workplaces or seminar rooms. Here we're surrounded by toys and pastel-colored chair furniture, and it's great.
Yeah.
Let's see if it brings out the childlike playfulness in us.
Drives creativity is where it comes from.
There you go, yeah. So let's hope it'll influence us. So we can talk about different things. I know some of the recent topics you're most passionate about have been coffee, cannabis, and music. All three are at the top of the top 10 list in terms of news we hear today. A lot of top three categories are also controversial. Right. Let's start with coffee. What do you have to say about that?
I mean, when I wake up in the morning, I gotta have my cup.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a way a lot of people start their mornings. A lot of people take their breaks, and coffee is just a part of our culture, especially the working culture too, right? Have coffee. Sometimes that's your moment of inspiration. Sometimes people don't even want to talk to other people before their first cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, coffee in that sense is a cultural staple. And that's kind of how my day begins. And then it gets into all the different activities that I have to go about on a regular basis. But coffee is just a part of my day multiple times.
Yeah. Do you have a particular type of coffee you like, or?
We're Canadians, so Tim Hortons is definitely high on my list.
Yeah.
But of course, Barocco coffee is pretty much up there as well. Like I'll find like places that have good original brewed coffee. Yeah. And that's where I'll go. I mean, I got my favorites. There's Jimmy's Coffee. There's Cafe right here in Fort York, and Aroma too.
Aroma.
Yeah.
Cool. I remember when I first came to Toronto, the staple coffee houses that I saw, just on a mainstream level, were Coffee Time, Baker's Dozen back then. This is before Tim's was even on the scene. And you can definitely see Canada, and especially Toronto, worldwide, but over here there is a vibrant coffee culture. Yeah. And I think you've got it split into two parts. You've got the corporate entities like Timmy's, Starbucks, Timothy's, and then you've got the underground coffee shops, like the mom and pops, like the sole proprietors, right?
The boutique coffee.
The boutiques, yeah. And sometimes I think people they really don't know what coffee is because they're used to the corporate brands. They've never really delved outside their comfort zone and tried like a boutique style or something more personalized, right? Yeah. And I think that's important for people to do, right?
Definitely. I mean, it's a lot of preference. It's a lot to do with preference and timing. People want their coffee at a certain time. They want their flavor a certain way, and so on and so forth. And I always ask people this question of what's the biggest religion in our world today? I'm going to ask you.
Money, sex.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Social media.
It's consumerism. You're right. Consumerism is the biggest religion on the planet because we live and die by what we buy. Everyone's got their faith, but consumerism is over and above that. Going back to coffee. Yeah. When you go to work in the morning, 9 to 5ers, and you go to work in the morning, what do you want to do first? After you put your stuff down on your desk, what do you do? Go get your cup of coffee. Yeah. And then you come back and pretend to work.
Have you tried bulletproof coffee yet?
Yeah.
How is
it? I like it.
Is
it's got a good flavor. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Do you make it yourself, or you bought it from a store? Or?
Oh yeah, just some of my friends were into that whole thing, so I tried some of them.
Yeah, I think Dave Asprey was the pioneer behind that, right?
For sure.
And he says it's got some nutritional benefits, but the caffeine high lasts a really long time, right? You're talking anyway 6 to 8 hours. Is that true? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I like to do these days is put CBD in my coffee. I don't know if you know what CBD is, but that's the medicinal side, the non-psychoactive component of cannabis.
Yeah.
Right. And it comes as an extract in oil droppers, and you put a couple of drops in your coffee. It's like taking the Limitless pill.
Okay.
You quote me on that.
No, for sure. And do you find it works well together? Because caffeine actually goes on a rush kind of high. CBD, I would imagine, is more sort of pulling you back, right?
It's not like that. Like, the endocannabinoid system, or ECS for short, that exists in our bodies is everywhere. In our digestive system, our respiratory system, our neurological system, everywhere. So when you take CBD, it allows that whole ECS system to work in the way it's supposed to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ever tried smoking coffee? You never know, one day.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, that's a good segue into cannabis, I guess.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on cannabis? I know Canada just legalized it October last year. In terms of the province of Ontario, where we're in, they rolled out the retail stores April. Some have already started, some are sort of following suit, catching up. What are your thoughts on what's going on there?
Cannabis has been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, right? Only now, because of legalization, people are discovering it. People are feeling like there's this new product out. And interestingly enough, for the first time in human history, there's a product that serves two types of people simultaneously, right? One is the medical patient who's looking for, help with their condition. And at the same time, there's the person who wants to chill out or relax or go out on the weekend. So your bud tender, your server, has to be somewhere between a healer and a dealer.
Okay.
So this is not just serving somebody, but having an understanding of where they're coming from, knowing how to, bring your personality into that transaction, that conversation, and so on. Right. So that's the thing. It's new because it's been legalized, but it's been around for many, many years, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So if you want to take this conversation back to Prohibition for a second, in the 20s, right, way before we were born. It took about 20, 30 years for the government and the people to settle on how this product was to be distributed and taxed and sold. So now it's 2020 almost. We got computers, we got AI.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to take about maybe 3 to 4 years. And the government is going to say, guys, self-regulate like the TTC. They'll want their piece like everybody else, and we'll be good.
Yeah.
I think there'll be more private dispensaries. There'll be online dispensaries. There'll be all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Once we're in a self-regulating system, which I'm predicting that's where we're going to go, it's going to be innovation and creativity that leads us forward.
Sure.
Because right now it's fear.
It's fear, yeah. And I think that was the whole thing with the culture, was fear. This is going to get legalized. What does this mean for the children? Are they going to be able to walk into your corner store and, purchase a joint, smoke it, and, people were sort of against that mentality, right?
Well, again, you have to think about it like this, right? Like, as a culture, we've got values, we've got principles, we've got, guidelines that we follow in our families. And it's our responsibility to educate our youth that are coming up with us. Cannabis shouldn't be consumed by anyone under 25 years old, because the human brain only reaches full development in most of us by age 25.
We would hope so, yeah.
Right, yeah. So we recommend that if you're under 25, don't try this stuff. Read about it, understand it, be aware that this is a medicine, but it's a very powerful substance. That if mixed with the wrong substance or taken under the wrong circumstance, it might have negative effects.
Yeah, I remember reading about Richard Branson. He said when his son came of age, he took a joint and he smoked it with him, and he wanted to be the first person that the son interacted with when trying cannabis. And the reason he said, because a lot of people gave him heck for it, saying, why are you doing that? He said, son, you should, do otherwise. And he said, no, if he's going to get into this world, I want him to get into it from a trusted source, which is me, and I want to show him that it's responsible.
That's right. That's right. Responsible use is everything.
Yeah.
We created this thing called the Coalition for Responsible Use, and it's now transformed into the Canadian Retailers Council, right? And it's really helping the community, people that want to get involved in the cannabis business to understand all the elements of it, just like I spoke about, from serving people in a responsible manner to protecting youth, and issuing child-safe bags so that your product is secure and safe for anyone around you.
And who developed this movement?
Which
The Coalition for Responsible.
Oh, that was us.
Oh, okay, amazing. And it's gained traction.
Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah, to come out at the same time as legalization.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're kind of ahead of the curve in that sense, like you mentioned earlier. Looking at how the government is currently addressing the system as it is, you're thinking there's a lot of fails. In fact, we've seen the government fail in so many instances in this whole legalization process.
Yeah.
From how they're sort of picking their lottery winners, which is insane, to, not having a care in the world to deal with or serve disabled customers. Can't even do that.
Yeah.
I was with my buddy Ken there the other day at one of these spots, Honey Pot, and they just told us, I'm sorry, can't serve you. There wasn't even a ramp there.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. So there's a lot of things that we both have to learn from the retail side and then dealing with the government, and they have to learn a lot too. So that's why I say it's going to take a few years.
Yeah.
And, it'd be in everybody's best interest to learn from each other and serve the people in the best way. Ultimately, that's who you want to impress, really, the people.
Yeah. And, I remember going back to, again, first coming to Toronto, if you wanted to purchase marijuana, and it wasn't legal back in the day, but you had to meet someone in a park.
Yeah,
you were at the dealer, and you were at the mercy of what they had. You didn't know if it was hydro or cess. That's how it was, categorized. Mm-hmm. You didn't know if it was sprayed or not. Mm-hmm. You just took it and you ran with it, right?
So I hope that you'd be okay.
And hopefully now with regulation and rules coming in and auditing of certain things, like they'll control that portion, right?
Yeah.
Make it safe.
I mean, I've had so many conversations around this stuff, right? And I was in a barbershop the other day and I was having this conversation. And he was like, well, why would I go to the government when I've been dealing with my dealer for the last 30 years? Yeah. So, people have created that level of trust and respect with their local dealers. And that is not going to change.
Yeah.
The thing that is going to change is retail and the way people consume it and the way that we understand it and all of these things. And I think education is really the key here.
Do you think it should have been privatized from the get-go once it got legalized, or?
I mean, yeah, of course, but hindsight is only 20/20, right?
Yeah, like privatization would have done a better job in getting the targets on track and the stores opening on track and things like that, because they're used to rush deadlines and looking at all the different variables a company has.
Absolutely, I mean, there's huge independent retailers that are in existence right now that are fighting the government.
Yeah.
There are human rights tribunal claims that are in process already. So all of those things are happening while the government is trying to figure out how to do things and how to serve people. So, like I said, it's going to be a couple of years.
A couple of years, okay.
Yeah. And it's our job in this gray area, let's call it, right, to lead the way. The people who lead the way in this gray area in this time are going to be the ones that get grandfathered into the system that the government is going to try to issue in the next couple of years.
Correct. And not to knock the government, but things when done the government way, they tend to be a little bit slower because of bureaucracy, politics.
Yeah,
right?
They're Titanic, so it's difficult.
Just the nature of the beast, right? I mean, and I think it'll be good down the road if we see a fusion of government and private enterprise, right? And then
100%.
Maybe, we heard in the news recently they've given up the beer store sweetheart deal. Maybe they'll do the same with cannabis, right?
These are all signs headed in that same direction.
Okay. So if I can ask you, from my knowledge, I know there's 3 different types of cannabis. So there's indica, sativa, and ruderalis. The most common ones are indica and sativa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ruderalis is kind of less in potency, so it's maybe used for clothing or medicinal purposes. What's the main differences between the first two?
Well, the types are actually indica, sativa, and hybrid, right?
Hybrid, okay.
Ruderalis is more of the type of plant, but it doesn't make it out to the actual product.
Okay.
It's just used in creating the plant.
Yeah.
Right? Creating the flower. But there's so many different types now, right? So, of course, the general public maybe not knows that there's indica, sativa, and hybrids, but there's also extracts, there's edibles, there's concentrates that you can dab, there's creams, there's lotions, there's topicals. It's endless. I think we're getting to that point now where we're going to see the cannabis version of Procter & Gamble.
Okay, yeah.
Because people are going to create their own consumer packaged goods. People are creating teas, people are creating cakes, people are creating all kinds of products. And it's the ones that manage to package and deliver those products in the right way to the right people at the right time, those are the ones that are going to win.
So for all the early onset entrepreneurs out there who are listening, this is your time to maybe be a pioneer and get a head start on this, right?
Absolutely. Jump in. Don't be afraid. Surround yourself with people that know more than you do, and try to learn as much as you can.
Yeah, that's amazing. If I can ask you, I know a place like Amsterdam, it was legalized for a fair amount of time before, Canada and the States started to legalize. But in Amsterdam, it almost seemed like they legalized it and they kept it to the entertainment cafe concept. We're seeing here now with legalization, cannabis has taken many forms, like as you just mentioned, from, the bud to edibles to topicals, etc. And people are sort of getting cannabis into the business economy and into the cultural setting of the city as well. They're promoting that. The brand, the poster boys, people like Mark Emery, Tommy Chong, who actually took hits, right? Like they were martyrs, I think, for all of this to happen.
Right.
Why do you think in Amsterdam it sort of stayed in that zone, but now in Toronto and the US it's exploded into these different categories? Is it just a sign of our times, or are we as a culture doing something different here?
Yeah, I think it's definitely to do with differences in cultures. In Europe, that's the way that they've been doing it for the last however long they've been doing it. In America and North America in general, it's been under the radar for the longest time, but been in existence.
Yeah.
Only now it's a little bit above board, and that your grandma can smoke weed too.
Yeah.
So we're in that brand new time and space. We're just trying to figure it all out.
Yeah. And do you have, being a visionary, do you have a vision 5-10 years what the culture is going to look like? Do you think it'll be as readily as accepted as alcohol and cigarettes are? Or will there still be a slight stigma?
I think, people are always going to have their opinions. Right now, when we go and speak to mayors because we're changing bylaws, right? As we go through this process with retail and online and all of these ways to get the product from the warehouse to the customer, right? Where's it going with this?
Was it to do with culture?
Yeah,
cannabis in
that's
culture,
right. That's right. You asked me the difference in cultures in Europe and in Canada.
And where you see it in 5 years.
Yeah, and
the stigma.
Self-regulation is definitely where I see it.
Yeah.
Self-regulation in the sense that there'll be big retailers that are independent, maybe working with the government or aware of the government, definitely paying the government, but there'll be many self-regulating systems so that people will serve the best product.
Yeah. And again, responsibility is the use, right?
Responsible use, that's number one.
Because and this has not to do with just marijuana, it's anything, whether it's a car or a hobby you have, any sort of exaggeration or overindulgence is no good, right? Like I'm infamous for saying
everything in moderation.
Yeah, and a friend of mine actually says moderation even in moderation, right? Like,
no, that's a good one. I like that. Moderation. So we're going to use that.
Responsibilities. To be honest, if you ask me, if someone put a cigarette in front of me, a drink, an alcoholic drink, or a cannabis product, I would go for the cannabis product only because, personally, I prefer the creative influence that it has, right? The philosophical thinking that comes from it.
Of course, it's deep.
It's useful. It's purposeful, right?
Yeah.
I mean, cigarettes and alcohol do have their place. It's just more of a different use, right?
They'll kill you
for something else. And some people want that, and these days you have your right? Like,
that's funny.
Do what you want.
Yeah.
Okay, let's segue into music. So we started with coffee. We took a sip. We did cannabis.
Smoked the blunt.
Yeah. And now the setting is there. Logic Pro is all set up.
Yeah.
Waiting to hit record.
Yeah.
What are you up to in music?
Music's been part of my life since forever. Only in the last, I want to say 6 years, I've been able to channel it into real business. Okay. And the business of music includes shows, so I book shows, clothes, so I do merchandising, and videos, and I'm going to use video as a format to promote all your music, right?
Yeah.
I found I've been in this whole music thing since I've been alive.
Yeah.
But really here in Toronto, like over the last, I think 12 years or so, maybe 10 or 12 years. In that time, I've worked with artists, I manage artists, I book shows, gone to the conferences, done all of those things. And now what I'm working on is putting all of those three things together, coffee, cannabis, and music, especially here in Canada, by taking all of those elements on tour.
Yeah.
It might start with 10 cities, still putting that together. In the last 6 years, I've worked with big organizations like Canadian Music Week, and Adidas, and Tesla, these types of brands.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that brands and artists are very similar. They both know how to make their product, but they both don't know how to campaign their product.
Correct.
Right? So that's kind of where my personal sweet spot is, in campaigning. So I can campaign for brands, campaign for artists. And magic happens when you're able to campaign both a brand and an artist that share their sort of similar values and can create a campaign and a tagline, a slogan for them that works for both of them. Yeah. And then build that up to maybe an event or a performance or some Instagrammable moment.
And again, no fault of the artist, because traditionally 99% of artists are focused on their art. They have zero business background, unless they might, or if it comes from like a parental influence or something, then they might have a head start.
Some artists, they just have that inherent ability to campaign. Like right now, present day, I feel like Rich the Kid is a perfect example of a new young artist who knows how to think business and apply that.
Yeah.
He's independent, he's got his multiple deals, and he's got his own artists as well. That's how you want to do it. You want to follow anyone in music today? Follow Rich the Kid. It's a good formula.
He's doing it himself.
Mm-hmm. And also, just at Canadian Music Week, and we brought in some heavyweights, including DJ Khaled's branding sort of manager. Her name is Tammy Brooke, and she revealed the viral formula to us. I'll reveal the viral formula right here in your podcast.
Sure.
The viral formula is when you mix two genres, music and sports.
Okay.
Art, fashion, music, those types of things. Mix those cross genres or opposing genres even together. You get a hit record like Old Town Road, country and hip hop. Right?
Yeah.
That's what you see what Billy Ray Cyrus did with Lil Nas X. Yeah.
Okay. And that's the new trend, so mixing the features of two different genres.
Well, it's not a trend, but it's always been a formula that's worked historically.
Yeah.
You notice that anytime anything has gone viral, it's because two or more genres were mixed there. If you look back at anything viral, that's why it went viral. A lot of people today, in fact, before a brand would brag about how their commercials on TV or billboard, today every single brand wants to brag about how they went viral.
Yeah.
Am I right? So music is a key aspect to really anything going viral, because music is part of us.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched a movie with the sound off? It's probably not going to be that much entertaining. Yeah.
And going viral doesn't know the standard of something. It just does it because these principles have been in effect and it goes, right?
That's right. If you have a puppy in your video, it's going to get more views.
Yeah.
There's a few hacks.
Yeah.
That's just because of human emotion and how we respond to things. If there's an excess of products in your video, of something that's not available, it's probably going to go far.
And I guess that's where you come in, because you bring in the artist. You're matching the artist to the audience / market, but you're sort of fine-tuning the image that the audience sees, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Standard.
Think of me as a mailman, because I package and deliver.
Yeah. Amazing. How have you, or what have you noticed? Because the music industry has drastically changed. So if someone wanted to get a record deal in the late 80s, early 90s, it was completely different than how it is now. Back then you didn't have YouTube. MySpace was kind of coming up.
Yeah, you didn't really have the internet the way we have the internet.
No, you couldn't self-promote. And back then you were at the mercy of the record companies charging you maybe up front, or they spotting you in up front, and you had to pay back.
That's right.
You ended up with very little.
That's right.
Today, is it better for an artist?
Way better.
Yeah.
Way better.
How so?
Because you have the internet. You have your first testing ground of your art, which is the World Wide Web. Once you put your stuff out there, then you have an understanding of, you can begin to have an understanding of who your audience is, and keep pushing it out there. In my opinion, today, the 7 to 14-year-old is way more advanced and successful than any artist in their city, because they just simply don't care. They create and create more and create more and create more, because they're actually engaging with their fans. Yeah. Doing simple things like opening up toys, or showing you their latest craft, or talking about something, some game that they played. So they're not wondering if you're watching them. They know that you're watching them, and they're creating more and more content for you every single day. Yeah. So you want to be successful, follow what your local 7 to 14-year-old is doing today.
And you see it on YouTube. You see these kids who are influencers, who are testing toys, things like that, making millions of dollars a year, right?
Yeah. Like, this is a new tool called TikTok. I don't know if you've seen TikTok.
I have not. No.
Kids are I can't even look at TikTok for more than 5 minutes, because too many images flash through my mind in a second, because just a lot of things. Like, TikTok used to be called Musical.ly before, but now it's a platform geared to the younger audience, primarily millennials and Gen Z. But it's got some really cool camera tricks in there, and it's like a karaoke app. Yeah. But everyone makes their little video to everyone's popular song.
Oh, cool.
Creating more content. Yeah.
And these days, I know back in the day, a lot of the focus of where the money was made for an artist was in the selling of CDs, right? Mm-hmm. But that has changed with iTunes coming up and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Today you have to be a business person.
Yeah.
If you're an artist, you can't just be like, oh yeah, I'm making music. Well, what else you do?
Yeah.
Do you have a fashion line in the works? Are you, in business of, I don't know, real estate, cryptocurrency? Yeah. It's almost imperative to be a business person first, and then make a song about it.
So really the product is not the music anymore, it's the business.
Exactly. It comes down to the business, which is the artist. Yeah. So, we mentioned this earlier too, you have to have multiple sources of income.
Yeah.
That's absolutely crucial. You want to be an artist, okay, maybe you can hold on a part-time job. Guess what? You can also have a part-time business.
Yeah.
A lot of people find that hurdle very hard to get over, right? Yeah. Like, do you have a part-time job, or do you have a part-time business, or do you have both? And when the hell are you going to have the time to make your music?
Yeah, correct.
That's why we're artists.
And that's a great segue getting into, I want to talk a bit about entrepreneurship with you, because I know you're a bit of a guru on that. Before we get into that, I just want to say I do have a contrarian view on music, and coming from a music background. My major was music in college. I did it for 5 years, and I was a full-time musician performing and as a hired gun for about 6-7 years, and teaching as well.
Nice.
In that sort of category, I didn't do the songwriting, go big with a band kind of focus. And sometimes I tell my fellow music peers who are making music, I said, if you really want to be true to your art, you won't mix it with business. And that's getting a little bit philosophical. Mm-hmm. And then they say, listen, how are we going to survive, feed our families? Like, oh yeah, for you that's okay, because it's not practical for you not to charge for your music. But I said, if you want to maintain the purity of your art, don't involve any money. Don't involve any outside control. Do it yourself. Whether it's good or bad, it's your own product. That is the purest form of art. It's not tainted with any external influences. Mm-hmm. But again, someone whose, livelihood depends on music, you can't do that, right?
I mean, art is art. Like, when someone's creating it, that's what they're going through in that moment. And comes out of it is something beautiful always.
Yeah, correct. Okay, entrepreneurship. Yeah. I wanted to ask this because I remember as a kid, like growing up with you in school, I noticed you were well ahead of the curve. You had the latest Nikes, fashion, sports. How did you develop that? Was that something that came from your parents or the people you hung with? Or?
I think I watched a lot of TV and listened to a lot of hip hop. Even in St. Mary's, I was just listening to like NWA and things like that, right? So I was very in tune. Even when I came here to Canada for the first time doing a master's, my supervisor was like, "How do you speak English like that?"
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I watch a lot of TV, listen to hip hop. I don't know what you want me to tell you. Yeah. So those cultural differences, right? I say this a lot. Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
Every morning. Because there's people in boardrooms trying to understand how to get to people like us.
Yeah.
And there's artists that are trying to wonder, how do we get to the big guys to give us money? And well, the big guys are wondering, how do we get to the artists to help us attract more people?
Yeah.
Right? So people are disconnected but connected in such simple ways that they don't even understand. For example, the president of a big bank could be Indian.
Yeah.
And an artist could be black.
Yeah.
But maybe they like Jamaican food.
Yeah.
And they go eat at the same Jamaican restaurant that they don't even know about.
Yeah.
So our job as culture ambassadors who understand all of these elements is to bring all of those things together, understand what people are really craving, understanding it from a cultural perspective, and then putting out campaigns that meet them at those interest points.
And whether you like it or not, culture starts from whoever's at the top, right?
Absolutely.
And that'll bleed down into the organization.
Absolutely, 100%. I've seen so many organizations like that. The best ones are the ones where the leaders are actually incredible people and are able to share that leadership skill with their team.
And you see it. I mean, if you look at big companies such as Apple, Microsoft, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they were the pioneers, they were the visionaries, they were the cultural influence for the company.
Yeah.
And now, not to say that the company is not doing well, but they're not as innovative as they were with these two gurus behind the helm, right?
Yeah. Like if Steve Jobs is still here, Apple would probably have a flying car by now.
Yeah, and the phone would be inside our body, so you never know. Do you have any gurus for business you like to reference?
Yeah, absolutely. We're nobody without our mentors. One of my mentors right now is Steve Lobel.
Okay.
Steve, we've been bringing Steve down to Toronto. He's from California. We've been bringing him down here to speak to some of the students at Recording Arts College, Canadian Music Week, all of these types of things. Mentorship is so important.
Yeah.
I seek out mentors, especially in areas that I want to be doing things in.
Yeah.
I first reached out to Steve Lobel many 10 years ago. And since then, I've just built that relationship with him. Call him up for whatever I need advice on. Book him personally as well. And just pay attention to some of the moves that he's making out there.
So his forte is music management?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's come from the era of Biggie and Tupac and Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Oh, nice.
Managing those guys up until now, where he's worked with artists like Russ. He brought Scott Storch back from the dead. We were speaking earlier about people who've had issues in their life and then coming back from that. Scott Storch was that type of artist.
Yeah.
And he's now back, fully back in the game because of people like Steve Lobel, who are militant in their thinking. Militant and detail oriented and just people of their word. You know what I mean? Like, sure, we've talked about all different types of currencies in the world, but the number one currency that we still have on this planet is our word.
Yeah.
So,
and word is power, word is trust.
Yeah.
It's everything, right?
Absolutely. One of my new mentors is actually Rasta Phil. Rasta Phil has grown up with Mark Wahlberg and is like Turtle from the Entourage movie.
Yeah.
He's a real life turtle.
Wow.
But he's way faster than any turtle that I've ever met. And these are people that I continuously learn from, absorb certain things. These are people that have been out on the road. They understand how to talk to corporate and culture and deal with music and entertainment. So that's really who I keep around me.
Correct. And if they're the ones who were part of that original scene, the the culture they've absorbed from those people and the values they have to pass down is amazing, right?
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on the Toronto music scene right now?
Super hot. Yeah. Super hot. Everyone they almost feel like they have to run to Toronto to discover some artist or discover themselves as an artist or something. Like Toronto's on a world stage right now.
Especially with the Raptors.
Yeah, with the Raptors. Go Raptors. Yeah. Go Kawhi Leonard. Like, it's crazy shit that's going on right now. Our energy is at the highest I've ever seen, and this shit is historic. It hasn't happened in 25 years. So that's motivating the city on so many different levels. Sure, we've got some of the biggest artists in the world from here. Now we're in the finals, the NBA finals. That's adding a lot of sauce. Culturally, though, if you compare Toronto to any other American city, it's lacking that open, collaborative nature. Especially if you go to places like Atlanta. If we're in Atlanta right now, we'd already be in a studio.
Yeah.
And in would be walking Gucci and 2 Chainz and whoever else. That's just the nature of how things go over there.
Yeah.
Here, it's still, still building.
Yeah.
There's little pockets of people doing different things, but we don't have a format of creation. We don't have that open, collaborative approach to music. Here it's more like, okay, well, you gotta create your relationship with people slowly.
Yeah.
Because Canadians are slightly slower to warm up.
Correct.
But once they do, then, you might have a better chance of growing with that person.
You're right about that. And I find that, at least in the past, if a band wanted to get famous, and if they were a Canadian band, they had to go to the US to get famous.
Yeah.
But from what you're saying now, it's building up to the point where you don't need to go to the US. You can do it here, right?
Oh, no. You have to go to the US.
Still?
You have to go to the US. You have to go to Europe. You have to leave. I have a whole set of rules for how to make it in Toronto. You want me to tell you?
Sure. And I'm sure this applied to Drake, right?
These are people that have set the pace here. So, you can't take away from that.
Yeah. I remember going to a real estate seminar, and at the end of the seminar, the person who was presenting said, okay, from what I've taught you guys, go out and apply. And I remember some of the people saying, yeah, okay, we put it in our calendar and this. He said, no, go out right now and apply it. Yeah. So he actually made people go out onto the floor and apply the principles.
Really?
And that was a good demonstration of how things work in the US. They don't wait. Like you say, Canadians kind of take a step back.
What happens when 2 Canadians approach a door?
Don't know.
Nothing. Because one person says you go and the other person says you go. What happens when an American approaches that same door? They tag up that door and charge everybody $1 to go through it. Take that to the bank.
That's amazing.
So here, how to make it in Toronto, okay? I wrote this about a year ago, but I'm building the concept in many ways.
Yeah.
So there's 11 things how to make it in Toronto. Number 1, never let them know until it's ready.
Okay.
Number 2, believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see.
Nice.
Number 3, say less. We know this, right? We're in Toronto. Number 4, keep planting seeds and nurture their growth. Build and maintain relationships. Number 5, make eye contact, but also learn how to read body language.
Yeah.
Number 6, fashion is everything. Be original. Number 7, leave the city. Just go and come back. Quick. Anywhere. Just go and come back. It's a formula. Number 8, never quit. Number 9, develop a mastermind. Mastermind is made up of maybe 1 or 2 max.
Yeah.
Number 10, study and apply the Kansas City Shuffle. I'll let you Google that and figure out what that is at some point. I'll tell you guys later. And number 11, never let them know what the family is thinking. That's how to make it in Toronto.
What the family's thinking?
Yeah, never let them know what the family is thinking.
Is that the immediate family, or you mean your friends' family? Or
whoever you consider family.
Okay. Because that might get in the way of something or jinx something. Correct. Amazing. So all you budding entrepreneurs out there, you heard it from the master himself. Take those principles. Don't apply them later. Don't put it in your calendar. If you've learned anything, apply it right now.
Yeah, and speaking of apply, it's not enough to have the sauce. You must apply it.
Amazing. And again, like, cooking, The recipes are there, but it comes down to preparation, right? And the more you apply, the more you get better at it. And then pass down the sauce, right, to the future generation.
Yeah, share the ingredients, right?
Don't take it to the grave with you. Okay, amazing. Darren, thanks so much for doing this.
No problem.
It's been a blast catching up with you.
Of course, man.
I'm hoping to see you on stage one day, a cup of coffee, a joint, and an artist, and all three performing as one unit.
I don't know, man. I mean, right now, my biggest dream, I'll tell you, my biggest dream is the everyday tour. That's 365 days of shows. So every single day there's going to be a show in some part of the world. That's my biggest dream. Anyone wants to help me with that?
Oh, for sure. And if someone like Steve Aoki is doing 2 shows in a day and is booked for more than the days available in a year, it's totally possible.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I wish you all the best and success. If people want to get a hold of you for any one of these 3 categories to pursue any conversation or anything, how can they get in touch with you?
Hit me up on the gram. Every day Darren did it.
Okay. Okay, amazing. Thanks again, Darren. That's great. Cheers.